Okay, the worst thing that someone has been facing with is to moderate panel during the lunch. And I have this role right now, and I'm going to be your moderator with two really experienced people, politicians, scientists, and my friends. Valdis Zatlers, President of Latvia, 2007-2011, and Thornike Gordadze, Minister for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration of Georgia, 2012, and professor and scientist. I'm Boris Tadic. I used to be President of Serbia, and we are going to talk about Ukraine, European Union. And I am giving floor to Thornike, younger. They have you agree with me, Valdis? Okay. Younger people, we are talking about the future right now.
Okay, so I'm not that young. I look young, but I'm not that young. I was
but you have to turn on the...
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. I was just saying that I'm not that young because it was the last time I was in government, it was already 12 years ago or 13 years ago. So things change. But we had a very young government, to be honest. Turning to the title of our conference is Rethinking World Order, Turning Challenges into Opportunities. And someone told me some time ago that in Chinese, the word crisis, I think that the pronunciation is very bad. But according to this person, the crisis in Chinese has two dimensions. So the first B means crisis, and G means opportunities that come from the crisis. So, yeah, please, can you confirm?
You are absolutely right.
Thank you. I will not kill my Chinese teacher. So
Danger and
opportunities.
Combined together is crisis.
Thank you. Yeah, there is crisis. There is evident crisis in transatlantic relations. This crisis is now triple because we have, there have been lots of tensions historically or disagreements in transatlantic alliance. Remember the war in Iraq, remember when the Americans unilaterally left Afghanistan, and the constant debates about the burden sharing inside NATO. But this time, these crises look very, very serious. We have this triple crisis, ideological crisis that was demonstrated during the Munich conference with J.D. Vance's famous speech now, economic tensions, trade war, it's already there. And maybe most important, we have crisis in our defense alliance with the United States. So there is no chance now to continue the denial. Europe has been in the denial for decades. Maybe they should have started to wake up and to organize themselves already under the President Obama, when there were lots of signs that transatlantic relations were already becoming different. We had Trump's first presidency, but we are still hoping in Europe that that was temporary and that the normal would come back. But there's no normal. Things are getting even more dangerous. So it's time to really react and to see the opportunity also out of this crisis. It's the really very moment of truth for the Europeans. So we can also thank somehow President Trump for, giving us despite himself becoming the architect of European defense. Now we have, because the President Trump recently said that Article 5, he was asked about Article 5, and he said, I don't think if America is attacked that the European allies, and namely France, will come and defend us. But it already happened in 2001, September 11, the Europeans came together with the US in Afghanistan, but it's not important for the American president. We're not going to discuss why it's not important, is it good, is it bad, but the fact is that The values, this transatlantic alliance that was based on values, on international law, etc., is not any more important for the current leadership in Washington. For them, transactional relations are much more important. Alliances are now kind of cost and constraint more than force. So this is reality. Now the Europeans have two major challenges. First challenge is to support Ukraine and to help Ukraine, because supporting Ukraine is not only supporting Ukraine and Ukraine's independence and freedom, it's freedom and independence and security of the whole European continent. Ukrainian soldiers and civilians are dying for the rest of Europe. This is already an evidence, and this is something that Europeans understand much better now than years ago. So helping Ukraine with financially, doubling, tripling the aid Europe is giving to Ukraine, and also helping Ukraine, if the ceasefire or truce is signed, to guarantee their freedom and their security, sending troops over there. But at the same time, Ukraine is also an opportunity, going back to this duality of crisis and opportunity for the rest of Europe, because Ukraine today has maybe the most efficient, or one of the most efficient for sure, army in the European continent. 900,000 European soldiers are mobilized on the front line. And this country has already 3 years of war experience. Not a single European army has this experience and this combat experience. At the same time, Ukraine has already developed a very important industrial base for defense. They are inventive, they produce lots of different types of armament. And Europeans, if they defend Ukraine, it's not only for Ukraine, but also by Ukraine that Europe will guarantee its future security. So all the discussions we had the last few weeks in Paris, in London, in Washington, in Kiev, between different European leaders about the future of Ukraine and about the future of Europe, should take Ukraine as a part of European security for future, because without Ukraine it's not possible. And giving Ukraine or giving up Ukraine, abandoning Ukraine will for sure provoke another conflict on the European territory. There's also other important things. So what should be this new architecture on the European continent for long-term perspective or mid-term perspective? It will take time. There are different approaches between the countries. Some believe that we can still patch up our relations with the US and keep them somehow present. This is the approach of the UK, of Italy. They understand that nothing will be the same, but it's better to keep somehow Americans on board, maybe leading from behind, as it was said under Obama. The others, like the French and the Germans, they say that no, it's done. They will never really come back, and nothing will be the same. And so we have to rely on our own possibilities. And this is also the position. The French have always been like this, but the Germans, this is something new. I mean, the future German Chancellor Merz is sharing now the French position on almost every point. And he's becoming Gaullist in his reflections. And coming this from someone from CDU, was the most pro-Atlantist party in Germany, it's quite a novelty. So organizing Europe in the long term to defend itself without eventual help of the US. If one day US come back, it will be a bonus. We should not rely on the Americans, and we should not keep the hopes that they will come back. But if they come back, it would be a bonus. But we should organize without them and integrate as many countries as possible, including Ukraine, I already mentioned, but also Turkey. Turkey is a very important NATO ally. NATO and Turkey has the second biggest army in NATO, a very important military industry. And Turkey sees the crisis in Europe as opportunity now. I just read that a few days ago, Italian Leonardo and Turkish Bayraktar company signed an agreement to develop together a huge project about drones. And the Turkish military industry will benefit from all this rearm EU project that will start soon. So keeping Turkey together with Europe in security is very important. It's also very important here in this region, in the Caucasus, for my country, Georgia, but also for Azerbaijan, in future, to be somehow associated with this new European defense architecture. Because no one knows if Georgia, Azerbaijan, the region of the South Caucasus doesn't really represent importance for the US. And there's no possibilities of alliances with the US. The only future alliance that will guarantee the security of this region will be together with Europe. So I will stop here and be nice to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Valdis, what's your comment?
Oh, everybody is ready to comment.
Before launching your comment about crisis and opportunity, when crisis in Serbia started to be very difficult in 2008 after Lehman Brothers, I am that man who have said to Serbian people, crisis is always chance, in accordance with your definition, Chinese definition. But they are still criticizing me in Serbia because I've said something like this. Still, from 2008 nowadays, they didn't forget that I said this crisis is always chance, this is opportunity, which is true, but people cannot accept that. This is also very interesting. Well, sorry.
Okay, no problem. Let's say if we evaluate this situation we have today, even with all these up and downs and expectations and failures and we really face every day, I would say we are creating a new Iron Curtain. Not by Europe itself, but this is a goal of Russia to self-isolation and having a definite line of Iron Curtain and being away from Europe and Western world. If you look at the rhetorics, the Anglo-Saxons were guilty, In the last week, Anglo-Saxons disappeared, European Union is the main enemy of Russian. It's said publicly. You see, we have to listen what people say publicly and take it seriously. Because always there is some truth behind, even if it's sometimes very strange statements. So Zelensky spoke about security guarantees, and nobody answered him. There are three types of, to my mind at least, of security guarantees. One are treaties, agreements, what I call paper guarantees. And the experience of the last 3 decades show that they don't work. We cannot trust them, even if the signatories are very, very powerful states. And they agreed on some compromise. So let's forget about that. The second is economic guarantees. It was a case of, Ukrainian-American deal. You see, we all try to believe that having an American business on Ukrainian soil will be a guarantee. Yes, for a while, until the private company will find out that it's not profitable to make business in this place, and they move out, and the guarantees disappear. And now we come to the point that the only serious security guarantees are military. In a military conflict, you don't expect other serious security guarantees except military. And even having the case of Latvia, we have all three. We are members of NATO, we are members of the European Union, we have integrated in the European Union's, let's say, economic sphere, and we have troops on the ground, NATO troops on the ground, and still we are concerned about the threat from the East. And still, I repeat, we are concerned about the threat from the East. So we have to understand that this situation is to to become long-lasting for decades. The Iron Curtain and, let's say, unsecure security. What we can do, the best solution would be, Ukraine in NATO. We have two factors that will not be possible. Russia doesn't want it, and Mr. Trump doesn't want it. So in the next 4 years, forget about that. We need solutions earlier. Okay, some European countries offered, their armed forces to be as the peacekeepers. The immediate reaction from Russia was that's the same as NATO. So no sense. So no, we have to bring, Australians, Chinese, Japanese, whatever, Indonesians. So is it possible? Okay, in theory, yes, but in practice, I don't think it is going to work because of very complicated negotiations. So what could be the opposite? The Russians ask Ukraine to disarm. Let's say no weapons in 100 kilometers from the border. And this is a paradox. In 2008, Russia withdrew from Conventional Arms Treaty Europe. Just the argument was nobody is going to tell Russia where to put our armed forces in our territory. Today we have a situation where Russia demands Ukraine to follow instructions, Russian instructions, where to put the military forces in Ukrainian sovereign territory. It means it's also, again, impossible. The only way, to my mind, which would be something, absolutely opposite, to really create a new conventional arms treaty in Europe. That means to not only Ukraine moves 100 or 200 kilometers from the borderline, but also Russia moves 100 or 200 kilometers from the borderline. And then, if it is demilitarized front line, it's much easier to control it. If it is contact line with armed forces on both sides, impossible to control. We will have a lot of small conflicts, and everybody will blame the opposite side that the opposite side is guilty. So are we ready to negotiate? And then we have to create a unity in European Union. That must be our initiative to say that, okay, no arms, no confrontation, but then let's remove arms from both sides from the front line. Is it going to happen? I don't know. At least, if the conventional arms treaty in Europe would be relevant today, or let's say in 2022, everybody would see the movements of Russian forces and could prevent the war. But if, my colleague President Freiberger said, 12 hours before in aggression, Foreign Minister of Russia says, we are not going to invade. So we need something much more trustful, not just the words. So let's work together. Europe is an island of peace. Our slogan is never war, never again. And it's against the Russian slogan, we can do it again. We can repeat it again. What's the sense to repeat the Second World War? I don't know. Something has gone crazy in this world, but we have to keep calm, use our knowledge, use our experience, and of course, our motivation for peace.
Thank you, Valdis. I have a question for both of you. Thornike, and after that, Valdis, what do you think? If United States are going to withdraw their support, and fundamentally from the Euro-Atlantic Alliance, whether European Union is going to be united in terms of supporting Ukraine in the longer period of time?
Yeah, it's a very tough question because so far, of course, the U.S. statements have been such a shock that almost all the European leaders said, yeah, solidarity with Ukraine, together we'll be stronger, etc. But when you go into details, you see that practically it's quite difficult to realize. First, even there's a big news from Germany, and this is something very positive that, for the first time, Germany understood that, okay, they have to spend a lot on their defense, the industry has to work a lot on defense. They are ready to accept the French or British nuclear umbrella. I think they will start reconsidering their attitude towards the nuclear, civil and military nuclear energy, etc. But at the same time, there are lots of other countries and important countries inside the EU who, at least in the current political situation, are not ready to go as far as what the French and Germans are. The UK is doing a great job. They are now back to Europe. This is one of the consequences also after Brexit. For the first time, they feel more European now than before Brexit. At least it's my view of their recent moves. But at the same time, they understand that without the US, cutting all links with the US will be extremely difficult. At least at the beginning, because the US intelligence. Air security control is much stronger than the European, and without that it will be very difficult for the Europeans to do all this by themselves. They will do it at the end, but it will take time. Italy, another important European country, their governments ideologically are maybe closer to the current US administration, but at the same time they are in Europe, and they are much closer also with Ukraine, and they understand the situation with Ukraine, but they don't want to be left behind this French-German historical alliance. So they want to be also to have their say in all this new architecture, etc., etc. And I'm not talking about Hungary and some other European countries who are aligned on Moscow. It will be very difficult. It also depends on the fragility or the strength of the ruling coalitions in each of the important European countries. I live in France, and I see that President Macron is very much engaged in this. But inside the country there is a challenge coming from the far right and far left. Both are challenging this idea of united Europe on defense. They are not really supporting Ukraine. In Germany, AfD, now they are 21%. Together with the far left, they are 1/3 of the opinions, and it will be very difficult for the Chancellor Merz to get the 2/3 of the both chambers of the parliament to revise the constitution and to agree on a bigger budgetary deficit. So it's very fragile, but now is the time to realize that these things what happens in Europe is far beyond the political oppositions, and everyone has to agree. It will take time, I think, but maybe it's the last chance. If we don't take this chance, it will be too late and forever, I think.
Thank you, Thornike. Valdis, what's your opinion on that?
Yes, we have to understand that we can create European unity much easier through NATO. If we live only on the EU side and with the political, discussions, it will have more side effects than the discussions inside the NATO. Most of the European Union states are in NATO after Sweden and Finland joined. Absolutely, that's right. So why it is so? We should not look for military alternatives. We have NATO, and why the decisions and consensus in NATO are reached much faster than the EU? Because it's apolitic, it's just a collective defense organization, it's military organization, and therefore they have much more discipline, and they are more target or goal oriented. Because they don't need any, elections, they don't need, to protect their images, they are just professionals. And if we could improve, the political decision-making process and people involved in that, in a better contacts in NATO, and rely on military experts more rather than on populistic political experts, we will succeed in a much shortened time. we always forget that the NATO is still there, you know, and I was really surprised. And when there were some rumors that Trump is going to remove US from NATO, I said, let him go. The rest of the NATO stay in place, you know, and we have to take, let's say, our responsibilities, European responsibilities. And if you look at the political picture, you know, let's say we have the Baltic Nordic group, or Baltic Nordic 8 countries, always consulting with each other inside the EU before making EU decisions. We can make it also with NATO as a military organization of Europe, not only transatlantic. And we have Canadians with us all the time, committed, you know, and we will have Americans committed too, on a military level, not on a political level. And we have to really understand what's much more important. In a danger that we have military threats, we have to rely on military collective defense organization.
Thank you, Valdis. All European Union countries are facing with their own challenges. I mean, Germany's boost of the AfD sovereign party, sovereignist, not only Hungary and Slovakia, but also all other countries, France, for example. And the outcome of that war and that kind of divisions and new paramount shift in the global arena with Trump can be the boost of the sovereignist among the European Union countries. In that respect, general outcome of that can be totally different policy towards Ukraine. Ukraine has been investing very much human lives, resources, damages. That is investment in their freedom, and they can pay extremely high price in the end of this story. But one issue is concerning me very much. This is the requirements from Russia for territorial claim, and this is huge territory, bigger than many European Union countries nowadays, the territory of many European Union countries. And this is paradoxically some idea which is totally violating international law, territorial sovereignty of every country. And if the final outcome of that involvement of Trump administration in negotiations with Russia is going to be that territorial requirements and that territorial the change of the territory of Ukraine, we are going to live in totally paradoxical world. And every big power can ask for the same requirements everywhere, and not only big powers, but also middle powers, because we know that there are a lot of territorial disputes, and that can be horrible outcome of these negotiations right now in international arena. But let me say once again, that story didn't start with Ukraine. That story started with my country.
Followed by mine.
Yeah, with Serbia on Kosovo. And many political leaders were in favor of partition of my country. In that time, they didn't even take into consideration case with Ukraine. I was launching my speech in the Security Council of United Nations by saying, you made a much more dangerous world nowadays. And I said, next is going to be Ukraine. I failed. Next was Georgia, with South Ossetia and Abkhazia. But still, we have a people in political arena that cannot understand what happened. Still, they are suppressing in their memory what happened with Kosovo. They do not want to think about that. They feel much more comfortable if they are not thinking about that. But we are living in an outcome of failures and bad decisions right now. Just to remind ourselves, because we are changing history with our acts and with our decisions. And right now this is why I am launching that problem. If Putin's requirements for territory in Ukraine is going to be final outcome of these negotiations, we are going to live in even much more dangerous world in the future. Because we have so many territorial disputes all around the world. We have right now almost 50 conflicts, but in the future we can wake up in the world with hundreds of conflicts with a new global war. This is something that I would like to comment. I'm expecting your comments on that.
Maybe President first.
Valdis.
The situations all over the world and the situations in all over these more than 50 military conflicts are many times different. We cannot apply the same, let's say, decisions or let's say plans or actions that will work for every. We should forget about the comparison, this is a comparison and it will work that, and we will make a mistake there that will create the next mistake. We should approach just to each conflict looking for the cause of the conflict. And until the cause of a conflict is not understood and solved, that would never give me a secure world. And sorry, Boris, I know what you say, but Ukraine and Kosovo are two different stories. Okay, there are a lot of similarities, but basically there are two different stories. And also, you know that there's no war in Kosovo today. Just thanks to your country, just thanks to maybe the European community, but it's very important not to have war. In Ukraine at present, we have real war with a huge number of casualties. And we must not, make arguments that it happened because, like Russia does. It happened because, the Ukrainians provoked us. And the same was in Georgia, the Georgians provoked us, And this stupid, argument that somebody provokes you to attack and to invade in the neighboring country, it's immoral, War is a moral thing, and I hope everybody in this room will say, this is a moral thing. If somebody makes a decision, whatever historical, arguments he has, if he starts a war, it's a big problem. It's a big problem of humanity, If you want to solve these conflicts, we should not forget the facts in the history, but just start from the white sheet of paper. White sheet of paper and say, okay, many disasters happened, many people were killed. We had the arguments for, and the opposite side, they have a good arguments for. Let's put them aside. Don't forget, but put that aside and listen what we can, and talk to each other, what we can do today. Of course, if you ask my opinion, I'm not sure the Russians are going to act in such way. Sorry, the historical experience, which are not going to forget. If Zelensky said that he is ready for peace, he had made a big move in the perception of his own country, the goals of his own country, and what the people of Ukraine need today. He did it. We didn't see the response from the opposite side. We didn't see it.
Thank you, Valdis. Thornike.
Yeah, maybe for me it's easier to follow on Kosovo example because my government did not recognize the independence of Kosovo. So even with the old sympathy for the cause of the people's right for self-determination, etc. But what's happened after the international community recognized the independence of Kosovo, it was directly the Russian reaction. We all remember that we have our own home recipe. Putin said, I will not reciprocate, I will not imitate like a monkey. He said, не буду обезьяничать, those who understand Russian. we have our home recipe, and that we started to understand that the home recipe was for us, for Georgia. And the year 2008 started for our understanding of how we went to the war was first the recognition of Kosovo, then Bucharest summit, where the NATO membership was denied to Georgia, even if, okay, the formula that was found was a little bit different, but it was a no at the end, not now at least. And that helped Russia to intervene and to also to motivate one of the reasons they were grounding their invasion of Georgia was that, yeah, you, the West, you did Kosovo, so we will do the same in our neighborhood, and that was for us. And for Georgia, it was extremely important. This is a Pandora box, of course. I remember together with Eka, we met many African ministers of foreign affairs, and once we were talking to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Congo, Democratic Congo, Kinshasa. And we were talking with him and saying that please don't, because the Russians they had this checkbook diplomacy and they were trying to obtain the recognition of Abkhazia and South Ossetia from other countries. And the Congo Minister of Foreign Affairs told us that forget about this. If I do this, tomorrow my neighbors will recognize at least 7 of my provinces as independent states. Because in Africa, the inviolability or the stability of the borders, even if they are based on colonial borders, it's like a sacrosanct principle. And this is a Pandora box. And I hope, and I don't see any Ukrainian government, of course not the President Zelensky, to recognize this territorial, the exchange or giving up officially the Ukrainian territories to Russia. Even any Ukrainian politician, if the Russians think together with the current American leadership that if they put someone else, he or she will recognize the territorial concessions officially on the official level to Russia. I don't think it will happen. What can happen for the sake of peace is just to accept temporarily that these territories are de facto lost, but they will be in coming years when the Russian leadership will change or the international situation will change to try to recover them peacefully. This is the only thing that Ukrainians can do, and this is the only right answer to the current situation.
Thank you. I have to comment what Valdis have said. Sorry, my friend, but I totally disagree with you. But it's not democracy. This is a simple argument. I fully agree with you. Ukraine and Kosovo are different cases, very different cases. Russia aggressively attacked on Ukraine. NATO aggressively attacked on Serbia without permission of Security Council of United Nations, which was a violation of international law. They were killing people on the streets. Nearest bomb exploded 900 meters far from me, destroying Chinese embassy. They were killing young people, also kids. They committed war crime. No one was responsible for what they've been committing. Also, Russians have been doing the same thing in Ukraine. If we are analyzing every case and going from the case to the case, without any principle, we don't have international law. We don't have standards. We have not only double standards policy, we have a triple, for multiple standards policy. We don't have rules anymore. In which kind of world we are going to wake up? In the wild world. That can be outcome of the world nowadays. This is what I wanted to say. That can be outcome of the world nowadays. I'm just appealing on you to be very serious and to understand what can be outcome of partition of Ukraine nowadays. This is not only about Ukraine, this is about the world. Because such decisions, when we are implementing peace, this is decision which is changing political practice. Changing political practice is a changing rule of law in international arena, and we are waking up in a totally different world. But nowadays, I would like to be focused on Ukraine. We have to analyze Ukrainian society nowadays, whether Ukraine is able right now to recover itself without international help. How many Ukrainians left Ukraine nowadays? I don't have Katerina, do you have any?
7 million.
7 million Ukrainians. Mostly, they're in good shape. People that are triggering economic development and well-educated people. In a moment, 200,000 in Serbia. What is very interesting, 500,000 Russians and 200,000 Ukrainians. We didn't have any conflict between them in Serbia. Very, very interesting. We are welcoming both very much. And I talked with some Ukrainians a few days ago when I was in Belgrade. But do we have a really organized world to help Ukraine nowadays? Do we really have a kind of plan how to help Ukraine? Because Ukraine is one of the biggest European countries, extremely important, not only because of rare minerals, what is focused on Donald Trump, but because of human resources, because of geostrategical position, because of history, because of culture, because of everything. Do we have a really plan how to recover Ukraine altogether? This is also what I'm asking myself.
Okay, just so example, how to heal the wounds of the past. And I'll say publicly, I don't have the delegation from NATO, but being a president, former president of a NATO country, I can say bombing Belgrade was a mistake. We all apologize. We are not going to make these mistakes in the future. And if some of the responsible persons will be brave enough to say that, this wound, Boris, of your nation would be healed. I hope so.
Comment on how to rebuild Ukraine. First thing is to guarantee security for Ukrainians. This is obviously the main thing now, because without security there's no development, there's no recovering, there's no rebuilding the country. And this is the first thing is to give to Ukraine the solid guarantees for many years for their independence, for their sovereignty, that they will not be invaded again in 6 months, in 2 years, etc. So this is primordial, and this is, if the Europeans can do it without the US, they have to do it, because it's also, as I said in my talk, very important for the rest of Europe. Because if there are no solid guarantees for Ukraine, there will be other countries of Europe invaded by Russia. Maybe not Portugal or Spain, but those who are close to Russia. I mean, the Baltic, because Putin started when he requires from the US starting to work on the causes, profound causes, deep causes that provoke the war in Ukraine. He understands that with the end of the Cold War and the enlargement of NATO, because he believes that the enlargement of NATO, at least he wants to show that enlargement of NATO is responsible for the war in Ukraine. So if we do not oppose to this crazy idea something very firm and security guarantees to Ukraine, that's what the Russians think, and they will, appetite comes with eating, and if we agree on all their conditions, they will never stop. So first security, and then of course helping Ukraine to rebuild their economy, and this is a huge market also and very important for the Europeans. European Union has a free trade agreement with Ukraine, and investing in Ukraine, and also Ukraine will participate in European development, economic development, in European security by having security themselves and by having their army strong enough, and by having their military industry in good shape. So these are the few ideas that I think everyone would agree on.
Valdis?
We are running out of time. I have to, moderate the next panel, and it started 10 minutes ago. Sorry.
Okay, Valdis was finishing this, but Rosen wanted to say a few words.
Just something very important. Just a minute. Probably I can speak from here. Very quickly now, listen, I was a young scientist during the Soviet Empire time, and I was sent to learn from the best not in Moscow, but in Ukraine. For us, the Ukrainian talent and the Ukrainian scientists were the best in the world. In metal welding, in nuclear, in ships, rockets, just name it. So here is my judgment of where we are today. Ukraine is going to develop in this year a ballistic missile that can hit more than 200 kilometers. I would guess that this year Ukraine is going to develop a new generation of drones. I would guess that, as I believe I know that, Putin knows that too. And he's using President Trump's irrelevance and probably incompetence right in the middle of Ukraine developing its own capabilities to defend itself in a very efficient way, because as we all see, paper doesn't matter anymore. And the signature of even great powers doesn't matter anymore. Exactly in the middle of that process this year, President Trump is going to play President Putin's game. So what do we need to do as Europeans? Help Ukraine, be patient, they will develop their own military capabilities, and the game will change in 1 to 2 years' time. If there is a peace now, it's going to be Putin's peace. If we help as Ukrainians Ukraine, in 1 to 2 years' time, it's going to be other peace, more sustainable. And just last but not least, do you believe that today Russia has the capability out of its military capabilities in the Black Sea, even just to put one military ship away from their harbors in the Black Sea? They cannot, because Ukraine developed capabilities that basically destroyed Russian military ships in the Black Sea. Let us be with Ukraine in a moment of history where they're ready and capable of developing themselves.